Hey everyone, it's Chris with Patriot Gardens. With spring in full bloom and all of us running to our local garden centers and greenhouses buying flowers and plants, I see a lot of people buying their soil and also picking out flower pots, and I thought we would take a minute to talk about the differences in flower pots. I know to the average person a flower pot may be a flower pot, but that's not necessarily true. Most of us are growing out of plastic these days. Plastic pots like these come in varieties of sizes, shapes, or sometimes they're foam poly-injected pots. All of them are still made from petrochemicals and plastic. A lot of people like the 5-gallon buckets to grow out of. In all honesty, plastic is not the best thing to grow your plants out of. Plastic is non-porous. It's hard for your roots to breathe in these plastic pots. You can still grow great plants in plastic pots, but if you move to let's say a clay pot that can actually breathe, you will get more production out of your plant. You'll get a healthier plant just because of its root system and being able to breathe. Plastic pots still work great for a lot of house plants, but I think if any of you guys are wanting to grow vegetables like tomatoes and peppers, I would steer clear of plastic pots for those, and I would go into a different class of pot, which we'll talk about here in a second. On the 5-gallon buckets, for those who are growing with 5-gallon buckets or are thinking about it, a vegetable plant needs to be at least in a 5-gallon bucket or bigger. You should never be in a pot smaller than a 5-gallon bucket. This is the minimum size for a pepper or tomato plant. Squash or cucumbers are going to need something a little bit bigger than this. You can buy buckets locally from hardware stores, places like that. Those are great buckets. You always want to make sure that the bottom of the bucket has a number 2 on the HDPE. That's the plastic that it's made out of. If you're getting buckets from your local bakeries that maybe icings and things have come in at donut shops, those are made out of a different grade of plastic, and those are not going to make it through even your first season. Even if you do get through a season with them outside, I will promise you the tops of the bucket will become brittle and the handle will also break. So make sure that you get a number 2. Boar's head buckets are fantastic because they're number 2. So if you know anybody that's got a boar's head deli, that's where I would recommend you buying a bucket. You usually are $1.50, $2 a piece. So these work great. Now, as far as the clay pots go, I know a lot of you think, well, I've got clay pots. If you've got clay pots that's got glazing and that type of stuff on it, this acts just like that plastic pot does. Right now, all the clay's pores have been sealed, so now this clay pot can't breathe either. Really, the standard clay terracotta pots are still really the best for growing plants in. Me personally, I grow all my house plants in clay pots and switched over from plastic as I repotted over the years. I don't really recommend growing vegetables in these. Herbs do great. You can't get a pot big enough to put a pepper or tomato in, and if you did, it would be a very large and heavy pot. So, great thing is if we like plastic and we like clay, we've got a new product on the market that's been out for a few years now, is smart pots. These are fabric pots. This right here is a 5-gallon size. 5 and 10 gallon are great to grow vegetables with. 5s are great for tomatoes and peppers, and if you've got cucumbers, zucchinis, squash, that type of thing, watermelon, cantaloupes, go to a 10-gallon size pot. These are fabric. Obviously, it breathes on all surfaces. Great thing is they have handles on them. You can move them around the yard or on your deck or your property. You can dump the soil out of these at the end of the season and wash these. They actually can go in a washer if you want to do that. I usually use a water hose and soak them in a bucket of solution of cleaner bleach just to sterilize them and reuse them year after year, or you can just leave them out in the yard. When you look at these things online or at the store, some of them are made for longer. Some of them will say they'll last for 3 years, 2 years, and those are the Eco Smart Pots, and they will eventually break down. If you're planting something like a tree and you're starting a tree from seed, those are great, so you can just take that out and plant it in the ground. This will not break down. This will last for about 8 to 10 years before it even starts to show signs of wear. You can leave the soil in these from season to season, and what I tell people to do in that case, if you've grown a pepper or a tomato in this through the season, is just let it set out through the winter, and you can actually take that stalk and 1/3 of the soil out of this next year and then re-add compost on top and replant right back into this and save 2/3 of this soil, so you don't have to replace it. But every year, replace your soil with 1/3 new compost, never potting soil. Potting soil should only go in that first year. And you can rotate that out and keep these in the garden, laid out in a row if you want to, and grow lots of beautiful vegetables in these. The best tomatoes I've ever grown in my life have been grown in these smart pots. I'm a firm believer in them, and I use a lot of them around my property and my personal garden. Once again, just to recap there, guys, real quick, plastic pots are not the devil or terrible to use. I'm just saying that the fabric pots and clay pots breathe better, so you do get a better root system. But for people who have limitations with weight and can't pick heavy things up, those plastic pots may fit that need a little bit better than these clay pots. Also, too, I know that these plastic pots come in a lot of colors, shapes, and sizes, so for people who are trying to incorporate decor into their garden, too, or into their house, these plastic pots offer that ability to be able to do that. But just sometimes if you've got a real finicky plant, I usually tell everybody that these plastic pots are good for general house plants that a lot of us pick up at Walmart and Lowe's and places like that. But if you're into rare tropicals and things, and you're having some trouble and you've done everything right, you've got a plastic pot, put that tropical in one of these clay pots and keep doing what you're doing and see if that helps and improves. Okay, everybody, until next time.